What scheme fall under this?
Welcome back to Sunrise. They were back with Peter Parker, the National Coordinator, NASSCO. No, not that NASSCO. It's National Social Safety Net Coordinating Office. Thank you for coming on this morning.
Thank you.
So what does your office do in this scheme of things here?
Well, I think concerned with the challenges of social protection in the country, particularly within the context of making sure that we have an established national standards as a way and a platform for ensuring that we have a proper engagement in addressing the challenges of poverty in the country. Hitherto, there had been a lot of issues around social protection, particularly within the context of targeting the poor and the vulnerables, and therefore government felt it appropriate that they need to have an office that will set up standards to ensure that there is proper targeting of the poor and the vulnerable on the one hand, to also ensure that there is coordination of all these programs across the sector, both at national, and to also establish a relationship between federal, state, and local government to ensure that there is a stronger synergy and partnership between all the tiers of government in addressing poverty issues. The fourth point is to ensure that we're able to have a platform that will build register of the poor and the vulnerable across the country so that our interventions are properly targeted at poor as against the previous process where individuals are included in the program who ought not to be, and then you have situations where people who ought to be benefit are excluded.
If I understand you, are you building from scratch?
Okay. Yes, because currently we don't have a national platform on which the poor and the vulnerable can actually be identified and targeted for benefits of government programs.
You mean by like a social welfare program?
Yes, like a social welfare. It's constitutional that in Constitution it states clearly that government has a responsibility to ensure that the welfare of the poor are actually taken care of. Currently, we don't have that platform and standard across the country. And in doing that, therefore, this administration said, look, why don't we strengthen our relationship with the state and the local government to ensure that we build a register, durable one, the one that is transparent, such a way that whoever will want to support poor interventions go into this register and identify the poor and the vulnerables and support them. So we are building that at a scratch. Currently, there had been hitherto 8 states in the country that have started building this register using resources from the World Bank. Which I think Dr. Folisho had mentioned earlier on.
Which they are relying on the communities.
Which are relying on the communities. Therefore, we are decentralizing the responsibility of identifying the poor and the vulnerable to the communities who know who these poor and the vulnerables are better than any one of us.
Let me bring this in. I mean, Justice, did they ever call to you or the group or anyone that, you know, they usually release all these figures where the World Bank says a certain number of people living below poverty line. So now that we're having to get the data from scratch, do you ever ask yourself, so where did they get all those data
from? Those data that have been used either to our surveys. So it's not really like you go and do a head count.
It's a broad-based.
So it's a broad-based survey, and on the basis of that, you make a projection and say, look, on the basis of what we are seeing in this local government or in this state, if we project across the country, it's likely that our poverty values will be the number that is being given.
What's the biggest challenge you face?
Biggest challenge we have currently is, first, we are building a national register for the first time in the country. So some of the challenges are how do we manage this information that we are currently collecting. However, we've started building an MIS system that will hold this data properly. But within the context of delivery of results, performance management is a key issue that needs to be strengthened to ensure that whatever it is that we say we are doing in the field are actually tracked and reported on correctly. Second point is related to the coordination of these programs. At national level, we find that MDAs are operating in silos. So coordinating that has been a challenge, but I believe that within the context of this platform created by government, therefore, there is an avenue that we can actually smoothen this relationship and make sure that we have a coordinated approach in dealing with the programs. Thirdly, is the fact that hitherto, everyone who has a program towards the poor uses their own mechanism in identifying who these poor and the vulnerables are. And therefore, we don't seem to reach out to the core poor. And that is why you're having that government spend the resources, and yet we're not seeing the commensurate result in terms of the impact of those resources disbursed vis-a-vis the benefits that this individual get. So if you have a platform like that, where all beneficiaries are supposed to be taken from a register that has been so established through a process that is transparent and accountable, then clearly you'll have a situation where that problem will be minimized, and therefore will not be targeting only those that have been so identified as poor and vulnerable.
Now, this is not the first time we've seen the government try to come up with schemes to help people who are in need. But you say this is the first time we're coming up with a register. What did we ever do with the list from previous administrations?
Well, the platform, the mechanism of identifying those individuals in the list that they have had been flawed with a lot of challenges. Some of them have been political patronage on the one hand. Some of them are people who are in a position like myself, who will go in there and influence who goes into register. And this government is saying, no, we cannot continue like that. Let's devolve responsibility of identifying the poor and the vulnerable to those who actually are in the community themselves, who know who these poor and the vulnerable are. So imperative, therefore, that we are building institutions that will ensure that this system stands durable. We are also building systems on which this mechanism will be delivered.
How can any other government coming in, trust that what you've built is something that they can rely on?
In terms of reliability, I think even currently, okay, in the 8 states that we have started developing this mechanism, some of the governors who came in actually questioned the integrity of those information. And they took their time, went back and verified. And clearly they realized that, yes, it was a transparent process, and they've accepted to use as a delivery mechanism. So we believe that if we're able to build that confidence and working with the states, even with the state currently we're having an MOU, okay, that spells out clearly this relationship in terms of saying, look, you know what, we agree with you that this mechanism that you've developed is going to be the platform on which we'll deliver on this program.
One of the biggest areas.
I'm afraid we'll have to wrap. We'll have to go on this, but I know that so many perspectives. But thank you for coming on. Peter Parker is the National Coordinator of NASSCO. We're back in a moment. Don't go away.